Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of dense, groundbreaking sources, roadmaps, research papers, earnings calls, you name it, and distill the essential knowledge you need to be perfectly informed.
And today, we are really immersing ourselves in the accelerating world of quantum technology. The whole conversation, it's fundamentally shifted.
How so?
Well, it's not just about discovery in the lab anymore. It's really moved into industrial commercial deployment. And that's being driven by, frankly, unprecedented financial commitment.
Yeah, that transition felt like it was front and center at the recent Quantum World Congress 2025, QWC 2025, over in Tysons, Virginia.
Exactly. And the timing wasn't accidental, I think. It coincided with the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology, IYQ 2025.
So a big symbolic year.
A very big year. And QWC 2025 really acted as a global barometer. The core theme wasn't just hypothetical. It was literally from discovery to deployment. We're seeing solid proof now. Real money, real hardware being pushed into the commercial arena by major governments and corporations. They're underwriting the risk.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If deployment is the big goal now, what's the sheer scale of the financial commitment we're talking about? Because the numbers coming out of that Congress, they were, well, pretty eye-watering.
Well, the defining feature, I'd say, of this current phase is the intensity of localized investment. It's almost like a high-stakes competition, particularly within the U.S., at the state level.
State level. Interesting.
Yeah, regional ecosystems are being built up with literally billions of dollars in anchor capital.
And based on the QWC announcements, it seems like Illinois is positioning itself as maybe the cornerstone of this regional arms race. Governor Pritzker was there, making it very clear they want to be the central hub for America's quantum future.
Oh, absolutely. Illinois is making a massive bet.
Yeah.
And when we talk about strategic investment, they're not just, funding research grants. They're building physical infrastructure, hard assets designed for manufacturing and commercialization.
Like what specifically?
Well, the headline number was a monumental $500 million commitment to establish the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park, the IQMP.
Okay.
And you have to understand, this isn't just another academic research park. It's explicitly designed to be a supply chain control point for quantum materials, for device fabrication.
Right, controlling the means of production, basically. And what's fascinating is how they're leveraging that state money to pull in the private giants.
Yeah.
I saw $200 million committed just to strengthening the Chicago Quantum Exchange, the CQE.
Which is crucial. You need that deep talent pipeline. You need the ecosystem to actually run these advanced facilities.
And then the really big private sector news was Sequantum, wasn't it? Illinois put in $200 million in state funds.
Which unlocked a parallel commitment of nearly $1.1 billion from Sequantum itself.
So hang on, that's a $1.3 billion bet focused entirely on building the world's first commercially useful quantum computer. And Sequantum is the first tenant at this new IQMP.
That's the plan. And what stands out to me about that massive co-investment risk, it signals a fundamental shift in what's considered an acceptable risk profile for public money. Sequantum, remember, they rely on photonic qubits using light.
Right, not the trapped ions or superconducting circuits we hear about more often.
Exactly. And photonics has its own unique, pretty significant engineering challenges. So for a state government to commit hundreds of millions to a single, relatively unproven architecture alongside a billion-dollar private bet, that's a huge economic and political statement. They clearly believe in the immediate commercial future of this specific tech.
But Illinois isn't putting all its quantum eggs in the photonic basket, are they? They seem to be diversifying the kinds of tech they support.
That's smart strategy. They want to be a comprehensive hub. So yeah, they also announced a $50 million investment in Inflection.
Inflection.
In the neutral atom.
Correct. And Inflection is locating its global quantum computing headquarters in Chicago, specifically to build a utility-scale neutral atom quantum computer there.
Okay, so photonics, neutral atoms.
Right.
What else? They're covering the other bases too. There's a collaboration with DARPA, a $140 million state co-investment for a quantum proving ground. Think industrial scale testing. Plus, they're anchoring a national quantum algorithm center, and that involves IBM bringing its next-gen quantum system 2 to the IQMP.
Wow. So infrastructure, talent, diverse tech platforms, federal partnerships. It really does sound like they're aiming for total ecosystem dominance.
It feels less like simple regional competition and more like, as you said, almost a geopolitical land grab within the U.S.
But why are states so eager? Why not wait for, say, a big federal quantum infrastructure push?
I think it's because quantum promises the kind of future-proof, high-wage industrial base that can fundamentally transform a state's economy for decades. It's about controlling that future supply chain.
The chips, the cooling systems, the specialized materials.
Exactly. That's a massive strategic asset.
Yeah.
Winning the quantum race locally means attracting and keeping the best scientists, the best engineers, and creating those high-value industrial jobs that, aren't easily offshored.
Makes sense. But Illinois definitely has serious competition. Maryland is being just as ambitious, maybe even more so in terms of the headline number. Governor Wes Moore announced their Capital of Quantum plan.
Yeah, committing a stunning $1 billion that's public and private funds combined over 5 years.
$1 billion. And Maryland's play seems a bit different.
It is. It leverages their existing federal assets. You've got that incredibly dense cluster of federal labs and military installations in the D.C. Maryland corridor. Think NSA, NIST, places like that.
Okay.
So their goal of becoming the world's premier quantum hub is really focused on integration and, crucially, security applications.
And how are they making that concrete?
Through a new partner integration center at the University of Maryland. And this is key. It will house one of Microsoft's prototype topological qubit machines.
Microsoft's tech. We'll get into that later, but that's their high-risk, high-reward approach, right?
Exactly. And this center partners directly with DARPA. So you have this direct physical link between Microsoft's cutting-edge, maybe even exotic research, and the government's urgent need for practical, usable, secure quantum tech.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, these huge, localized public-private investments, what's the main takeaway?
It clearly shows the risk has moved. It's shifted past just theoretical physics research and squarely into industrial deployment. The conversation isn't if quantum computers will work anymore, it's whose specific architecture will scale the fastest and, frankly, where they're going to be built and controlled.
And this isn't just a U.S. phenomenon. That international scope was also confirmed at QWC.
Oh, definitely. The International Forum noted that over 30 nations now have official national quantum strategies.
30 plus?
Yeah, it's a global race. And this proliferation creates an urgent need for shared standards. Now, before we end up with totally fragmented hardware that can't communicate easily.
Like the bad old days of early cellular networks or parts of the internet.
Precisely. We need to avoid that kind of balkanization if we want the field to advance efficiently.
Okay. So the billions are flowing, the geopolitical chess pieces are moving. That brings us squarely to the tech itself, the hardware. All this money, what exactly are they buying? It really boils down to different physics, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is the really fun part, technically speaking. The money is basically underwriting this fierce technological debate. Completely different approaches trying to create stable, scalable qubits. And we saw major roadmap updates and some pretty aggressive performance claims from the big players at QWC.
All right, let's start with IonQ. They've been making waves with their trapped ion technology, and they had a big benchmark ahead of schedule.
That's right. IonQ's approach, it uses ionized ytterbium atoms. They actually call them nature's qubit.
Catchy.
It is. And these ions are suspended, held perfectly still in what's called a linear ion trap, using rapidly oscillating electric fields. Then lasers do all the work, the quantum manipulation.
And the big architectural advantage here is supposed to be connectivity, right? Since they're in a line and repel each other.
Exactly. They're all connected. Shaking one ion affects the others directly through the chain's vibrations. It means every qubit can talk directly to every other qubit.
Which is different from some other approaches.
Yeah, in many superconducting chip designs, for example, qubits might only connect to their nearest neighbors. That makes communication across the chip more complex, adds overhead, potential for errors. IonQ's all-to-all connectivity simplifies programming and potentially reduces certain types of errors.
And that design just paid off. They hit a record score.
They did. Their tempo system achieved the record algorithmic qubit score of #AQ64, and they did it 3 months ahead of their own schedule.
Okay, #AQ64. We need to pause here. What does #AQ actually mean for you, the listener? It's not just the number of qubits.
Right. It's a measure of quality. Specifically, it measures a system's ability to run complex algorithms with high fidelity, meaning accurately before quantum noise, decoherence, scrambles the result and makes it useless.
So higher AQ means you can run longer, more complex calculations successfully.
Precisely. And reaching hashtag AQ64 means the machine's computational space has effectively doubled 64 times. It's capable of considering 2 to the power of 64 possibilities simultaneously.
Which sounds big. How big is that in real terms?
It's astronomical. It's over 18 quintillion different possibilities.
Quintillion.
Yeah. For perspective, people sometimes estimate the total number of grains of sand on all the world's beaches is around 7.5 quintillion. So this computational space is more than double that. It just shows the exponential power you unlock if you can maintain coherence.
Okay, that's staggering. Now, IonQ made a huge performance claim linked to this score. They estimated tempo is 36 quadrillion times more powerful than IBM's current publicly available systems at this hashtag AQ64 level. That sounds almost unbelievable.
It's a massive number, absolutely. And clearly it's aimed at market positioning. What they're fundamentally measuring there is the ability to run deep, complex quantum circuits without losing the signal and noise.
So the complexity of problems you can tackle.
Exactly. While you always take these comparisons with a grain of salt, the underlying point is that in terms of algorithm fidelity for this specific benchmark, IonQ is claiming a significant lead right now.
And they seem to be trying to back this up with more practical, commercially relevant metrics too, moving beyond just the abstract AQ score.
Yes, that's important. They reported, for instance, a 35% improvement in solution quality when running optimization algorithms, specifically QAOA compared to current IBM systems.
QAOA, Quantum Approximate Optimization Algorithm, what's that good for?
Think finance, logistics, supply chain management. It's like finding the most efficient route for thousands of delivery trucks at once, factoring in traffic, fuel, costs, incredibly complex optimization problems.
Okay, so 35% better solutions there.
And they claimed an even bigger jump, 182% improvement in solution quality for certain search algorithms, FAA. So the takeaway is that for specific types of commercial optimization problems, their trapped ion architecture appears to be delivering superior tangible results today.
Right. So that's IonQ focusing on demonstrable performance now. But Microsoft seems to be playing a longer game, defining success differently, pursuing that completely different high-risk path with topological qubits.
Microsoft is making a fundamental bet. They believe the only way to get to truly transformative, large-scale quantum computing is to make the qubit inherently stable by its very design.
Okay. And they introduced this Majorana 1 chip based on a new topological core architecture.
That's right, and this is where the physics gets really, really exotic. They're using a special material stack, a topological superconductor made of indium arsenide and aluminum.
And the goal is to create these Majorana fermions.
Exactly. These are exotic quasi-particles. The simplest analogy, though imperfect, is to think of encoding information not in a fragile single point, but more like a knot tied in a string.
Okay.
If you have information on a standard string and you cut it, the info is lost. But if you tie a stable knot, you can jostle the string, twist it, even snip off the ends. But the knot itself, the encoded topological information, remains robust. That's the essence of topological protection against local errors.
So the qubit state is encoded in this distributed, protected way, making it much more immune to noise from the environment compared to, say, a single superconducting junction.
That's the theory. Reliable by design, as they put it. And this claimed inherent stability is the key to their massive scaling vision. They claim this architecture offers a clear path to eventually fit 1 million qubits on a chip the size of your palm.
1 million qubits. Why is that number always the benchmark people talk about?
Because 1 million logical or fault-tolerant qubits is widely seen as the threshold needed for truly transformative computation. That's the scale required to accurately simulate complex molecular interactions needed for things like
inventing revolutionary new materials.
Exactly. Designing bespoke catalysts for carbon capture, creating self-healing materials, discovering new drugs by simulating proteins. Microsoft's argument essentially is that if your architecture can't reliably scale to that 1 million qubit level, it will hit a wall before it can solve these really world-changing problems.
And they've got serious government backing for this high-risk approach, too. They're one of only 2 companies left in the final phase of DARPA's big US2QC program.
Correct. DARPA is basically paying them to try and deliver the first utility-scale, fault-tolerant machine using this approach. It's a very public, high-stakes gamble, but if it pays off, the rewards could be immense.
So it really highlights that strategic tension in the field, doesn't it? IonQ maximizing performance today for early wins. Microsoft focused on the architecture they believe is necessary for ultimate utility tomorrow.
Perfectly put. It's a fascinating race to watch.
Meanwhile, IBM is sticking with the technology they pioneered, superconducting circuits, but pushing hard on scale, connectivity, and maybe most importantly, integration with classical supercomputers.
Yeah, IBM's strategy fully embraces the idea that quantum systems won't replace classical ones, at least not for a very long time. They'll augment them. So their focus is really twofold. Keep scaling the quantum hardware itself and perfect the tight integration needed for hybrid computing.
On the hardware side, they showed off that huge Condor chip last year, 11,121 superconducting qubits. That pushed the limits of just sheer size and fabrication yield.
It did. But the real performance improvements seem to be coming from their newer Heron processor.
Heron, that's 133 qubits.
Yes, but with a claimed 3 to 5 times performance improvement over their previous Eagle processors. A key focus with Heron was drastically reducing crosstalk, that unwanted interference between neighboring qubits, which is a major source of errors in superconducting systems.
And these Heron chips are the building blocks for their modular IBM Quantum System 2, the one operational in New York now.
Exactly. Quantum System 2 is designed from the ground up for modularity and scalability, specifically with that hybrid integrated computation model in mind.
And they have this very long-term roadmap, stretching out to 2033, aiming for what they call quantum-centric supercomputing. What does that actually look like, technically?
Well, the big target for 2033 is their planned Blue Jay system. They're aiming for 1 billion coherent quantum gates executed across 2,000 qubits.
1 billion gates.
Yeah, and just to give you a sense of the pace they project, that's a 9 order of magnitude increase in the number of gates performed compared to when they first put a quantum device on the cloud back in 2016. It's incredibly ambitious.
And achieving that isn't just about the hardware, right? They're emphasizing software and AI integration too.
Absolutely critical. They released QuizKit 1.0, which is the most popular quantum software development kit out there. They introduced quantum serverless deployment models to make access easier. But maybe the most intriguing part is using generative AI through their watsonx platform
To do what?
to help automate quantum code programming. Writing efficient, error-mitigated quantum code is hard, really hard. If AI can help translate a high-level problem description into optimized quantum circuits, creating that glue code between classical and quantum parts, it dramatically lowers the barrier for developers and speeds up deployment.
Okay, so we've got IonQ's ions, Microsoft's topology, IBM's superconducting scale. Before we move to applications, we should definitely mention the specialized players who are also finding success. D-Wave, for instance.
Right, D-Wave systems, trading as QBTS. They've really carved out a successful niche focused entirely on optimization problems using a different technique called quantum annealing.
Not gate-based universal quantum computing, but specifically for optimization.
Exactly. Their hardware is inherently designed to find the lowest energy state in a complex system, which maps perfectly onto many real-world optimization tasks: logistics, financial modeling, material science, protein folding.
And this focus seems to be paying off commercially.
Hugely. They reported record Q1 2025 revenue $15 million, which was a massive 509% increase year over year. That shows real commercial traction.
And they're running actual enterprise solutions. Their latest Advantage 2 system has over 4,400 qubits. The example cited was Ford Otissan using D-Wave to improve production sequencing for their Ford Transit line.
That's a concrete example of saving real money, improving efficiency right now using quantum annealing.
And briefly, Rigetti. They're also in the superconducting camp, but with a different structural approach.
Yeah, Rigetti, RGTI, uses superconducting qubits but employs a chiplet-based approach aiming for modular scalability. They had a key quality milestone recently, achieving 99.5% gate fidelity on their 36-qubit Cepheus system. And they're leveraging important defense collaborations, like a contract with the U.S. Air Force.
Okay, so a really diverse landscape. IonQ's high-fidelity connectivity, Microsoft's radical bet on topological fault tolerance, IBM's massive scale and integration play, and D-Wave's specialized optimization power. All right, here's where it gets really interesting for me. We've talked about the billions invested, the competing hardware, but how is all this computational horsepower actually being used right now, especially to tackle some of the huge global challenges like climate change or making industries more efficient?
Yeah, this section is really where that QWC theme from discovery to deployment becomes concrete. These applications are starting to prove that quantum isn't just solving abstract math problems anymore. It's delivering, or at least promising, near-term, measurable utility in areas that genuinely matter.
I saw a McKinsey report mention highlighting quantum's potential roles specifically in material science for sustainability.
Right. And you could break that down into sort of three key areas where quantum simulation could be a game changer. First, developing sustainable batteries.
How
By accurately simulating the chemistry inside batteries, quantum computers could help design new types that rely far less on problematic materials like lithium or cobalt, or that just perform much better.
Okay, better batteries. What else?
Second, creating higher efficiency solar panels by designing materials that capture more sunlight. And third, crucially, improving chemical catalysts. These are essential for processes like large-scale carbon capture and storage, or for producing green hydrogen fuel more efficiently. Simulating catalysts is incredibly hard for classical computers.
Those are definitely huge market opportunities with massive climate implications. But what about concrete wins reported by the companies themselves recently?
Okay, let's look at some specifics. IonQ, leveraging that high fidelity we talked about, demonstrated some big gains in energy grid management just this year. They showed their tech could make complex power grid simulations up to 50 times faster.
50 times faster. Why is that simulation speed so critical for the climate fight?
Because when you're trying to integrate large amounts of intermittent renewables, solar farms that drop off at sunset, wind turbines that stop when it's calm, the grid becomes much harder to balance. You need extremely fast, accurate simulations to predict flows and prevent blackouts.
Right.
Making those simulations 50 times faster means grid operators can potentially integrate far more wind and solar power reliably, reducing the need to fire up polluting gas peaker plants to handle demand spikes. IonQ's results suggested this kind of optimized integration could cut local pollution by as much as 15%.
So turning simulation speed directly into cleaner air, that's tangible.
Definitely. And D-Wave, with their annealing specialization, is proving its worth in logistics and resource management. They worked with a utility company in Europe, helping them manage the fluctuating output of solar and wind farms more efficiently, making those clean sources more reliable grid contributors.
And they had that great example from Tokyo too, right, with the trash collection.
Yeah, that's a perfect illustration of optimization power. They help the city optimize trash collection routes. It sounds mundane, maybe, but routing vehicles efficiently across a megacity like Tokyo is a computationally nightmarish problem for classical systems.
So what was the result?
D-Wave's system cut driving distances by 57%. 57%. That saves a huge amount of fuel, reduces emissions significantly, and cuts down on traffic congestion. Real-world impact.
And it wasn't just the big players showing results. Some smaller companies mentioned in the sources, like Quantum Computing Inc.
QUBT.
Right. QUBT apparently used their tech to track carbon pollution almost twice as accurately as older methods. And they also worked with power companies to find ways to cut energy waste by 37%.
And Rigetti was mentioned in the context of battery and solar panel design, too.
Yeah, accelerating the design process for new battery materials and solar cells, claiming up to a threefold speed increase compared to classical simulation methods. The Quantum World Congress also had this global industry challenge, the GIC winners. Those seem like very specific examples of quantum AI hybrid solutions getting tested on real problems now.
They were. The GIC was designed explicitly to match specific global challenges posed by organizations like the World Bank or Majorana, with specialized quantum solutions being developed by startups and research groups.
So for climate risks, the World Bank Group sponsored a challenge.
And the winner, DelphiQ from Australia and New Zealand, created a quantum-driven climate risk insurance model. The idea is to better predict and price those complex, nonlinear climate risks like compound flooding and wildfire events that standard financial models really struggle with.
Very relevant. And the infrastructure challenge for Majorana, quantum pave simulating asphalt degradation. That sounds niche, but I guess the impact could be huge.
Absolutely enormous. Pavement degradation is a massive multi-billion-dollar public works expense globally. If you can accurately simulate how different asphalt mixtures break down under traffic and weather stress, which is a complex material science problem, you can design roads that last longer.
Saving governments billions in maintenance, materials, and disruption.
Precisely. That was Quantum Pave from Sweden, Germany. And finally, in life sciences, a group called Synchronix from Switzerland won the NeuroQuantum Nexus Challenge by using quantum algorithms to analyze enormous data sets of neural signals, trying to decode brain activity more effectively.
Okay, so all these examples, from energy grids to asphalt to brain signals, what's the unifying theme?
I think the analysis is clear. The near-term utility is highly targeted. These quantum machines aren't replacing your laptop or even standard supercomputers for general tasks. They're acting as specialized tools, accelerators for specific simulation and optimization problems that are simply too complex or take too long for even the best classical machines we have today. So as this deployment accelerates, the industry is really hitting the next phase. It has to grapple with the, let's say, practical engineering hurdles, things like integration, power consumption, and of course, the looming security threat that quantum computing itself creates. Hashtag tag A. Hybrid computing is the near-term answer.
Right. And the strong consensus coming out of QWC seemed to be that near-term quantum advantage is almost certainly going to come from hybrid systems, treating the quantum processing unit, the QPU, more like a specialized accelerator chip, kind of like a GPU is for AI.
Exactly. But making that work seamlessly requires a huge engineering effort. People talk about co-design, needing to coordinate the classical CPU and GPU jobs with the quantum jobs in almost real time. The current workflow is often hampered by what's sometimes called the 2Q problem.
The 2Q problem, explain that for us.
Okay, so imagine you're a scientist running a complex simulation. Today, you might submit the classical part of your job to queue for time on a big high-performance computer, an HPC cluster. You wait, get your results back. Then for the quantum part, you have to submit that separately to a cloud quantum service, maybe wait hours or even days in another queue.
Ah, I see. It breaks the flow.
Completely.
Yeah.
It kills the iterative nature of scientific discovery or rapid optimization. For quantum to be truly useful as an accelerator, the quantum system needs to be, ideally, physically, right next to the classical machine and able to respond almost instantaneously when called upon.
That sounds like a major physical integration challenge, especially when you think about the sheer amount of data involved, particularly with error correction coming online.
It's immense. A fully error-correcting quantum computer, even a moderately sized one, is expected to generate absolutely enormous streams of data just from measurements and calibration, potentially tens of terabytes per second.
Terabytes per second? You can't just send that over the internet.
No way. You need specialized, high-speed processing hardware, think custom FPGAs or ASICs, located literally centimeters away from the cryogenic quantum hardware itself. This hardware has to process that fire hose of data in real time, figure out if errors occurred, and feed corrections back to the qubits, all within microseconds.
So the engineering is moving towards physical co-location. I saw examples like IQM, a European company, engineering their superconducting systems specifically to fit into standard data center racks like 19-inch units.
Exactly, so they can sit right alongside national supercomputers, like Finland's LUMI system. They're building that necessary physical proximity and the complex glue code software to make hybrid operation work today.
Okay, integration is key. But we also have to talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe the freezer in the room.
Oh, wow.
The power consumption, especially for these superconducting systems that need extreme cooling.
That's definitely a major engineering consideration. Keeping those superconducting qubits near absolute zero, around 0.015 Kelvin, which is colder than deep space, requires complex dilution refrigerators, and they consume a lot of power.
The sources suggested the cooling alone can account for maybe 70% of the system's total power draw.
That sounds about right for current systems. And the total annual energy consumption for a single advanced quantum system was estimated somewhere between, say, 220,000 and maybe 438,000 kilowatt hours.
Which, to put that in perspective for listeners, is roughly similar to the annual energy use of maybe 20 to 40 average American homes combined, just for one machine.
It is significant. But what's fascinating here is the trade-off conversation that's happening. Yes, the absolute power draw is high right now. And companies are working on sustainability, using renewable energy sources for their facilities, developing ways to recycle the rare earth materials used in the fridges.
But the argument is about efficiency for the task.
Exactly. The real gain is supposed to be computational efficiency for specific problems. For those complex optimization or simulation tasks they're designed for, the argument is they will ultimately use far, far less electricity and get the answer much faster than a traditional supercomputer trying, and maybe failing, to solve the same problem.
So the hope is the massive computational advantage eventually outweighs the significant energy cost of the cooling infrastructure.
That's the goal. Energy efficiency per solved problem, not just raw wattage.
Okay, integration power.
The final big practical challenge discussed heavily at QWC was security. The fact that quantum computers themselves pose a long-term threat to our current cybersecurity.
This is the big one, the existential threat, if you like. The risk stems from the eventual ability of a large, powerful, fault-tolerant quantum computer, the kind Microsoft and others are aiming for to break the classical encryption algorithms we rely on today.
Algorithms like RSA and elliptic curve cryptography,
Hmm.
the ones protecting basically all secure global communications, banking, government secrets, secure websites, everything.
Pretty much everything. And this leads to the crucial harvest now, decrypt later problem.
Explain that.
Even if the quantum computer capable of breaking today's encryption is still maybe a decade away, estimates often point to the mid-2030s adversaries, potentially state-level actors, are believed to be harvesting and storing massive amounts of encrypted data today.
So they vacuum up our secure communications now and just sit on it, waiting patiently until they do have a quantum computer powerful enough to decrypt it all retrospectively. Your encrypted emails from today, proprietary corporate secrets, classified government communications, anything intercepted and stored now could become vulnerable later.
That's genuinely chilling, so the solution isn't to wait until those computers exist.
Absolutely not. The solution is the urgent, preemptive deployment of post-quantum cryptography, PQC. New encryption methods designed to be resistant to attacks from both classical and quantum computers.
And the math for PQC is mostly worked out. NIST has been standardizing algorithms.
Yes, the fundamental cryptographic work is well advanced. The massive challenge now is execution, implementation, migration.
What makes migration so hard?
Several things. For one, many of the new quantum-resistant cryptographic keys are significantly larger than current keys. This can put a strain on older network infrastructure, and especially on small resource-constrained devices. Think Internet of Things sensors, embedded systems which were never designed to handle such large cryptographic payloads. So it requires a massive, carefully planned and coordinated effort across entire organizations, even entire economies. You need to inventory all your cryptographic systems, train cybersecurity teams, develop migration plans, budget for phased upgrades. It's a huge undertaking.
Which is presumably why major tech companies are stepping in to help. I saw IBM Quantum Safe mentioned.
Right. Services like IBM Quantum Safe are specifically designed to help enterprises assess their current cryptographic posture, identify vulnerabilities, and plan and execute that modernization roadmap to become quantum resistant before the threat fully materializes. It's a race against time, really. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has really laid bare an industry that feels like it's fully in transition. We saw that massive, strategically focused government backing, especially at the state level, with Illinois and Maryland turning quantum hubs into really geopolitical assets.
Yeah, the scale of investment is just remarkable.
And then we analyzed those fascinatingly different hardware platforms duking it out. You know, IonQ's current performance edge, shown by that hashtag AQ64 score, Microsoft's ambitious high-potential topological leap, aiming for 1 million fault-tolerant qubits, and IBM's relentless push for superconducting scale and deep integration.
Plus the specialized success of annealers like D-Wave. It's a really diverse technological landscape right now.
And maybe most compellingly, we saw those immediate measurable applications starting to emerge. In climate modeling, energy grid optimization, industrial efficiency like optimizing asphalt, it proves quantum tech is already delivering specialized utility.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean? I think the bottom line is the era of quantum utility is here. It's nascent, it's targeted, but it's real. Not as a replacement for your everyday computer, of course, but as a specialized, incredibly powerful accelerator for certain types of extremely hard problems that classical computers struggle with.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you, our listener. Given that some companies, like IonQ, are defining success and utility largely by performance metrics achieved today, things like high hashtag AQ scores, winning commercial optimization bake-offs.
Right, focusing on near-term value delivery.
While other companies, like Microsoft, are defining success more by the potential of their architecture, that theoretical but maybe more robust path to 1 million truly fault-tolerant qubits needed for those huge transformative problems, which metric will ultimately be the true measure of quantum success over the next decade?
That's a great question. It really pits that immediate demonstrated performance against the long-term architectural potential. Is the architecture that simply runs fastest today on current problems the winner? Or is it the architecture that, however slow its start, possesses the inherent scalability to eventually tackle problems the faster architectures might never reach?
Performance now versus ultimate potential later. It's a fundamental tension.
It is. And it means, for anyone following this field, you really have to keep your eyes on both the lab notebooks and the commercial revenue reports, both the technical roadmaps and the quarterly earnings calls. The answer likely lies somewhere in between.
A fascinating conflict to track indeed. Thank you for diving deep with us into this quantum convergence. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring this rapidly evolving ecosystem yourself.